Consistency to me matters more on how I show up for things, not when. And so if I am showing up for things with the energy that I want, with the space that I want, however I decide to define how I want to show up for something, that is what is important for me, and that's what I care about being consistent.
Welcome to Lay It On Me, a space where we come together to explore all of life's moments. I'm Claire, and I'm here to listen, share what I can, and most of all, hold space for you. This is a place where you can lay down whatever is on your heart and be met with no judgment, just honesty, love, and connection. Whether it's something big or small, light or heavy, lay it on me, and let's see where we end up together.
Hello and welcome back to Lay It On Me. Thank you so much for being here. We are coming back after a week off, if anyone noticed. I needed to take a little bit of a break. This has been taking up a lot of my time and energy, and of course, I decided to take on a new project as soon as I got started with this one. As soon as I launched myself right into the planning phase of the next project, and that has proven to be more than I bargained for, as most things always are. But honestly, I thrive on that. None of this is to complain or be like, oh, what was me? I'm doing too much stuff. I love it. I thrive on it. It's truly what I live for, and it's why I'm continuing to choose to live in this cycle that I have created for myself. I plan one thing for a while, I launch it, I start planning another thing, and now I have like 6 ongoing projects at all different stages. But this is something that I've been reflecting on a lot, and I really feel that the way I am approaching, especially the new projects I'm taking on, I'm approaching them in ways I've never approached things before. And so that is coming with a little bit of a learning curve for me to just honestly discover how I feel and how that works for me and what I have to do along the way. And this approach of, I don't even know how to verbalize it, but this approach of diving into things, this approach that I've been able to have with a lot of what I'm working on right now, where the time from idea to execution is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is quite intimidating for someone like me who is in this phase of having big ideas constantly. And so I am also having to be really clear with myself about what's worth my time and energy and what I really want to build. And so far, I haven't found myself diving into something that I don't want to fit into the bigger picture of everything that I'm doing. And so it's been really exciting to discover that, and to discover that I'm making these choices, I'm making these decisions, I'm starting these projects that I'm continually excited about, and continually excited about discovering and staying curious about how I can expand enough to fit in all of the things that I want to be doing right now. And it does feel like really good timing, around springtime, launching into summer. It just feels like the perfect time to allow so many things to bloom. And so all of that is to say, sometimes that calls for a week off or an adjustment of a schedule with an ongoing project such as this podcast. I was starting to get in a groove with recording each week and making time to edit and getting things all ready to go. And there was a point a week and a half ago where I just was feeling like I knew I wasn't going to be able to build in the time, and there were sacrifices I would have had to make to build in time to not just film, but edit this podcast for the following Monday, and it just wasn't feeling right. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to take a week off. I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I'm going to make that decision now and early and let it be. And that allowed me more mental space and energy for all the things that were on my plate that week. And I didn't want to show up to this space from a place of feeling like I didn't have enough to give. So that actually transitions me beautifully into our topic for the week. So quick little intro, catch up. Here we are. This week's episode is all about consistency. So the irony is not lost on me that I'm speaking on this topic after a week off, but we are going to talk about how that is actually a part of staying consistent and the overall image of consistency that I strive for and that I believe in. So here we go. Consistency. This was a topic sent in by a listener. Hello. I love you so much. Thank you so much for this topic. And I hope down the line we can talk about it together. I know we chatted a little bit about that. Whenever I get more of a rhythm with all of the things I keep adding to my plate, I am going to be adding in guests to this show and other shows that I'm starting to plan out a little bit more fully, and I'm very excited about all of that. But yes, okay, so consistency. Let's just start right away with saying that taking a break, taking a week off, adjusting a schedule, making adjustments along the way, that can be, and I believe is, a part of overall consistency. And for someone like me who struggles a lot with experiencing burnout while at the same time always adding onto my plate as much as I possibly can, consistency has been something that I have both struggled with and learned a lot about through adjusting my approach to things over the years. So I have learned that one thing consistency means for me is that consistency does not necessarily mean anything to do with time. That's how I want to put it. For myself, being consistent has not looked like showing up at the same time for things, putting in the same amount of time for things, or allowing time to be the determining factor of whether or not I feel that I am consistent. So that's more on the smaller scale, like day to day, week to week, month to month even. Consistency does not look to me like making sure things happen at the same time or take the same amount of time. On a grand scale, time is a big factor in consistency, and the reason why I don't feel like it's the largest factor for me on the smaller scale is because for me, the week to week timing of things doesn't really allow me to look at the bigger picture and imagine what that bigger consistency really looks like and how that can serve me. So there are certain things like with this podcast where I could have gotten really down on myself, and I had decided to talk about this topic for this episode before I decided to take a week off in order to do it. And so these feelings of not being consistent and not showing up were really coming up for me, and I really had to get clear with myself and what I believe about being consistent, why I even care about being consistent, if it helps me or not. And taking 1 week off when I want to look so far ahead with this podcast, further ahead than I've ever really looked for anything new in my adult life, looking ahead at the big picture of it all, 1 week, it doesn't matter. In the most simple terms, taking off 1 week in order to show up for other things that are really, really present in my life and maybe actually on a more short-term time constraint. That's really what was happening for me last week. Choosing to view this podcast and this project as the big picture project that it is and that I want it to be, I had to allow myself that grace to quote unquote not show up for 1 week. And showing up now, I will say, because I'm not so far into this and I don't have that much of a groove that I can just fall right back into, getting myself to be here and to feel ready to sit down and record again after a little bit of time away from this routine was really difficult. And so there is a part of, honoring that week to week consistency to continue to show up. If that's something that you need to show up again and again, then there is room for you to build the discipline for yourself to do that. For me, I wasn't in that place, and I wasn't feeling like 1 week was going to take me out of the entire thing. And here I am now showing up again. And for me, this is proof that I can stay consistent while taking care of other things and taking a break from something if that's what I need. So yes, right now, learning what being consistent within this project, learning what that means for me has really been a learning process. This is a big project, and this is something that I want to be a bigger part of my life. And right now, I really have to set the foundation and just allow myself to learn and discover what this takes, what it takes for me to show up week to week. I want to show up every single week. I don't want to take a break every 3 weeks unless that's what I discover I absolutely need in order to move forward in the long run. I'm not there yet. But I do want to show up week to week. And right now at the beginning, I'm still very much learning what that looks like for me and what that feels like and what it takes for me, both from an energy standpoint, from a mental capacity standpoint, from being able to carve out the literal time that it takes to sit down and record and then edit and set everything up. Those parts of the process are becoming clearer to me slowly but surely, but I'm still very much in the discovery phase of learning what this takes and what it is. And so I am in a position where I need to allow myself the grace to take a step back for a week, to really let that sink in, to really understand what that is. And as I've said earlier in this episode and earlier in other episodes of the podcast, I tend to bite off more than I can chew. And I tend to put myself into a state of overwhelm. And I tend to get ahead of myself. And that is a part of me and my process that I'm not looking to change right now. There are ways that I can adjust my approach to things and sit with myself more before diving into new projects in order to avoid any major burnout, or if I were to ever feel like I was sacrificing some real responsibilities that I have to take care of, then I would have to take a really hard look at all the things that I'm doing and reevaluate and make some hard choices about what I can actually handle. Now, right now, my feelings of having a lot going on are almost all coming from these sort of extra projects that I've decided to take on, and they are also fueling my creative passions and allowing me to explore and express in many different areas of my life. So there is this sense of like I am really trying to figure out how they can all fit, if they can all fit, and what it takes for me to see what that is for myself. So a whole part of this process is allowing myself to take the space that I need to discover what that is and what it looks like. If I hadn't taken that week off, I wouldn't have gotten as much other work done that I got done, which were the reasons why I decided to take a break from this process. There was so much energy that I was able to pour into all of these different things that I was working on because I just felt confident in the choice to put this one project down for 6 days, truly, and allowing myself to have that space and dive into these other things completely without any nagging voice of like, you should be doing this podcast. Oh my gosh, you didn't post a podcast. Oh my gosh, you didn't record. Oh, you're not making time. You're not scheduling. You can't do this, blah, blah, blah. All of those thoughts come up. As I've spoken to in the past, I haven't gotten rid of these anxious voices in my head, but I allow them to be there. I hear them and they're just not in control. So those were all coming up, and thinking about coming back to this to speak on consistency after this week away, it actually allowed me to gain a lot of clarity on what consistency really looks like for me. And it was one of those things where it's actually perfect timing, and it feels like it might not be because I'm talking about consistency after a week off, but it absolutely is perfect timing because it's giving me the exact right moment to talk about how taking a break is a part of being consistent. A big part of staying consistent for me is really about allowing myself to believe that being consistent, again, is not determined by the amount of time I put into something or if I show up for something at the exact same time each day or each week or anything like that. So, as I've mentioned in the past, I'm a person with ADHD. I'm also a person with autism, and so sometimes they are at odds in terms of wanting or fighting consistency in different ways. But I do know that there's going to be a lot of people out there that relate to struggling with being consistent, maybe directly related to having ADHD, because this is a very, very common struggle. Because I believe that a lot of people view consistency as, let's say, if I want to be consistent by doing something once a week, that means I need to do it every Monday. For me, that can't be true. If I want to commit to doing something once a week, that week is an entity. And whenever that thing happens once within that week, if it does, if I make it happen, that is consistency. It might be on Monday at 3 p.m. It might be on Friday at 10 a.m. Who knows? But for me, allowing that breathing room for whatever I define consistent to mean, that's what I need in terms of timing. So I know that it's very common, and a thing I've related to a lot of people out there, maybe you're listening, about this relationship with time, and specifically related to that with ADHD. It's hard. It's really hard. And there are certain things that, are beneficial to try and do at the same time every day, like waking up at the same time every day, going to bed at the same time every day, eating at the same time every day. You know what? Not for me. Maybe it would be better for me, but that's not something I'm going to be stressing over, because it's not something that I have found really works for me, especially as I am in this chaotic creative phase of doing lots of different things and lots of different types of things. My schedule is anything but consistent on a daily, weekly, timely basis. I have certain jobs that are at the same time every week, because those are not decided by me. Those hours are set, and those hours are what they are, and I build everything else around them, and it looks different every single week, and that's just what works for me. Now, there was a time a couple years ago where I decided to build a very strict morning routine for myself, commit to doing it every single day for a year, and then seeing what happens. Now, this was a big undertaking for someone who doesn't often do the same things every day. And I had never had chosen my morning routine, what exactly I wanted that to be. I had somewhat of a routine in terms of just whatever habits I had built, and some of them were more intentional than others. But this morning routine that I ended up building, it was a strict 35 minutes. And that was important for me because of this difficult relationship with time. There was a part of me that knew if I didn't have a strict timeline for what this routine was, I would talk myself out of it no matter what. Because especially in the morning, and especially getting in tune with the day, that routine sometimes felt like it took 3 hours. And sometimes it felt like it took 5 minutes. And for me, there's just no rhyme or reason for how that's going to feel, even if I'm performing the exact same tasks in the exact same order. And so what I did was I was able to create this morning routine with a very strict timeline, so that every morning when I woke up, I couldn't negotiate with myself of, oh, I don't have time, or oh, I don't have enough energy to do these different steps of it, and blah, blah. There was no negotiating to be had with myself, because I would make sure that I would wake up with at least the exact amount of time that I needed to do this routine, so that I could commit to it consistently. So this, I'm realizing as I speak that I learned a lot about consistency throughout this year of completely dedicating myself to this strict morning routine. And that really is something that served me, and it still serves me, and I don't do it every day. And it's not exactly the same, and I do different parts of it, and it's a different time, and it's fine. But when I want that structure, I have it. I built it. I did it for a year, and I know that it works. And I've been able to find my wiggle room around it lately. But in terms of talking about how, making this consistent can look different every day. So even within this strict morning routine, this morning routine did not happen at the same time every day. So it would be determined on when I woke up, when I had to wake up based on what I was doing that day, whether I had projects to do or work at a certain hour. The best part of this routine for me in terms of allowing it to happen on a daily basis was that it didn't have to happen at or by a certain time other than whatever the day called for. So if there was a day where I was off from work and I was just going to be doing different projects or different types of work throughout the day, and I maybe didn't have a hard and set start time for the day, then whenever I decided to wake up in the morning, then I would do the morning routine. Or if I had to work at 9 a.m., I had to leave at 8:30, I would do the math. I would backtrack. Okay, that means I have to wake up at this time to have these 35 minutes for this routine and then do what I need to do to get to work. And so sometimes the morning routine would happen at 7 a.m. or earlier or whenever. And sometimes it would happen at noon. If I woke up at noon on a Saturday or whatever, that's fine. I am still doing my morning routine when I wake up in the morning. And so that, with this very strict morning routine, it was very strict. I don't know if I recommend this to most people. I mean, maybe if you're also autistic and ADHD, maybe it will work for you. Maybe that's the secret combo here. But the level of strictness I was able to build while allowing a little bit of flexibility, I think that's why it really worked for me. But anyway, the point of talking about this morning routine is to say that I learned so much about how consistency, like real day-to-day consistency, is really, really beneficial. And the biggest part of that morning routine that really, really showed up as something that really serves me because of how consistent I was with it was the fact that I ended the morning routine with a meditation. So my morning routine was just a series of tasks that you do in the morning, getting ready for the day, getting dressed. I added in like cleaning up my desk and my room a little bit because I'm someone who throws all my clothes that I didn't wear or decided not to wear on a chair on my desk, and I wouldn't want to put them away. And so I just decided, okay, that's a part of my morning routine. I'm going to put all my clothes away. And so I was setting up myself, setting up my space. And then the final step of my morning routine was to sit down and do a meditation. And I would do at least 10 minutes. I would often do 15 or 20 if I had the time. And that was the biggest part of this entire year that I really saw the benefits of this daily consistency. Meditating every single day is something that I strive for. It's not something I have done strictly ever since that entire year of my routine, but it is something that shows up for me many times throughout the week. And I've been able to expand what the definition of staying consistent with that practice means to allow myself the space to take a break, show up when I need to. Now, I feel like I've talked in maybe a couple of circles here, and I hope that when I go back and listen and edit this, that some of the thoughts have been tied up. But one thing I will wrap up with now is to say that my whole perspective on allowing consistency to have flexibility is something that I need. I need to believe that, because I can so easily fall into a all or nothing and perfectionist mindset when it comes to trying to stay consistent or having a goal of being consistent with something. I need to be very specific with myself about what that means, what that consistency is, and how it can look. And if there are different ways that it can look, or if I'm discovering how it can look, or if I want to completely decide exactly what it is and show up like that, like I did for this year of my morning routine. Now, I really loved doing that because I did learn a lot. Like I said, meditating every single morning for an entire year, there's no doubt in my mind that that was an extremely transformational part of everything that I have gone through since. Meditation is a tool that just has served me so well over the years, and that's why I built it into that routine. And ever since, I just know, and I have such a confidence that that's a tool that works for me. And so allowing myself now and since then to have the flexibility to know that even when I don't show up every single morning or every single day even, the idea of being consistent can have some breathing room. And like I was talking about before with this podcast, I want to look at things from this bigger picture perspective. I didn't used to be this way. I didn't used to know how to think in terms of a big picture. This is a great lesson I have learned over the years, and I'm still learning. It's still very, very hard for me to look ahead and zoom out and see the bigger picture of things because I fall into this all or nothing, and the sort of day-to-day, week-to-week mindset is something that I have just had to let go of, and I've had to allow myself to not define things that way because it hadn't been serving me, and pushing myself to look bigger, to look further ahead, has allowed me to find this space, to find what this type of consistency can look like for me. So being consistent for me means always looking at the bigger picture and understanding that all of these smaller decisions, day to day, week to week, these smaller time frames that I am trying to be consistent within, they are very useful, and having this goal of consistency and to be consistent is extremely beneficial because every day, every week, every month, these smaller time frames are the building blocks for this bigger picture. And seeing them for that while seeing the bigger picture in a way I didn't used to, it has opened me up to just so much more ease and flow within all of the things that I'm doing and all of the ways that I'm building things. And also finding a balance, especially when it comes to working towards being consistent with something, finding the balance of giving yourself grace versus being more disciplined. So showing up today, I'm not gonna lie, I was very excited, but it was really hard because it's also one of those things. I'm not super in practice doing this yet. This is only episode 5. This is still a very new process to me. I still never really know how it's going to pan out once I start talking. I'm still learning. And so it was hard to show up, and I could have given myself too much grace and taken another week off, or just a day, or this or that, or okay, well, we have other work to do. Maybe the podcast can step aside another week. Maybe this, maybe that. I'm having all these conversations with myself. I'm looking for an excuse. Honestly, there was a part of me that was looking for an excuse, and not because I didn't want to show up again, and not because I wasn't excited to talk about this, but because I was scared. I was scared to show up and talk about consistency after a week off. I was scared to show up for myself and own my perspective and my belief that maybe a couple years ago, I would have defined this week off as not being consistent, and that this is now a totally new section of this journey, and now I'm gonna be consistent. But that doesn't serve me, and I really do want to own my belief that even last week is still me being consistent because I made a conscious choice and I stood behind myself in that choice, and I did all of the things that I needed to do while allowing this to just step aside for a moment. And the only thing that stepped aside was the active process of recording and editing. Everything else that I am doing with this podcast and am building around this podcast and continuing to expand within it, all of that has still been happening and has still been a part of my weekly routine and daily schedule and all of that. And so I have to just remind myself and root into the fact that I do know I am putting work into this. I do know that I am continuing to be consistent with this. And so I can allow myself to zoom out and to find that bigger picture vision again and know that 1 week off doesn't matter. Because here I am again. And what a perfect opportunity to own my perspective and to believe in myself and this consistent practice that I am doing and this project that I am doing, and I am staying consistent in it. Fear wanted to hold me back today. It really did. And I wanted to give myself some grace for that. I really did. And I decided to choose to be disciplined. I put on my calendar that I was recording today, and here we are. And sometimes that's just what has to happen, you know? I was really flowing into this process in the beginning and flowing through it all, and it just felt so expansive and so... I felt like I had all the space in the world to do this project, and I did. And that's what I was showing up with. And then a couple weeks in, I decided to add more to my plate. I decided to start a new project along the way, and then I had to readjust both that project and this one and everything else I already have going. So I'm still learning, I'm still growing, but aren't we all? That's what we're here to do, right? Wow. Well, thank you so much for this topic of consistency. I hope I touched on anything useful. It was really interesting for me to talk about. I really had some discoveries along the way in this conversation. And speaking of it being hard to show up, I knew that the second I started and really got into it, that I was going to just immediately remember and feel why I really love doing this. And why I did want to give myself grace for a week to take a break, because I didn't want to burn out from this. I didn't want to push myself too far and feel behind and feel stressed. I want to show up to this space with space and energy to share and to hold this space. That's what my goal is here. And so that will bring me to my absolute final thought on consistency that I really hold on to for myself, is that consistency to me matters more on how I show up for things, not when. And so if I am showing up for things with the energy that I want, with the space that I want, with the balance of grace and discipline and schedule and planning and flow and creativity and this, with however I decide to define how I want to show up for something, that is what is important for me. And that's what I care about being consistent. And if I have to choose to take a week off because I overbooked myself, my schedule got too full, then that's what I'm going to do, because I would rather take a week off and not show up exactly when I decided to. Maybe make a new choice of when I'm going to show up and focus more and put more effort into taking care of how I am showing up. And so through all of this and learning how to hold all of the things that I'm doing, I am committed to showing up as the person I want to, in the way that I want to. And if I have to adjust the timeline and the schedule, that's fine with me. And I still think that that is consistency. So with that, I just want to thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being here. Another week later, if you're here again, thank you so much. If you're a new listener, thank you so much for being here. Please follow the show on Instagram. I'm going to be posting some more questions, hopefully, coming up. I hope you all will contribute. I have a few more topics that I currently have ready to talk about, which I cannot wait for. And I always need more, and I always want more thoughts and perspectives. Again, that's what this space is all about. And so, as always, I love you. You matter. Take care of yourself. And remember, whatever you're carrying, you don't have to carry it alone. Lay it on me. All right, guys, I'll see you next time. Bye.